Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. Thank you so much for being here. Today I have prepared a short book recommendations video if you want to catch up on your 2024 reading challenge, or maybe because the end of year is approaching, the winter holidays are approaching, and you will not have that much time, but you still want to read something. This video is for you. Before we start, please know that this video is organized from the shortest to the longest books, but the longest one is only going to be 250 pages. Also be aware of the fact that if you have different editions of these books, the number of pages might slightly differ. So with that being said, let's begin with the actual recommendations. My first recommendation is Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast by Oscar Wilde at 52 pages. This is just a book with a collection of quotes from Oscar Wilde, and I wasn't really sure how to pitch this book or how to recommend this book to you. So I went to Goodreads, as one does, and found the perfect review for this one. So Daniela says, RIP Oscar Wilde, you would have loved Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers. And this is so funny because I actually believe that's not true. Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast by Oscar Wilde. Next up, I have The English Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt at 69 pages. This is a witty and twisty and thought-provoking story about trauma and about how cutthroat the publishing industry is and how certain people are just trying to profit off of other people's trauma. We are following a 17-year-old girl who is very smart, but in the same time, her parents just disappear one day and things are kind of escalating from there. I highly recommend it, more so because it's so short yet had such a big impact on me personally. Next up, I have Mammoth by Eva Baltasar at 103 pages. This is a story about a disenchanted young lesbian who wants to get pregnant, who rejects the norms that the society set upon her. She doesn't really like to live in the big city, so she goes to the countryside where she is trying to pursue the life in the raw. I would highly recommend Eva Baltasar. You will see that I have other book by her because I truly think Eva Baltasar is an amazing writer. A newer release, this is Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio at 108 pages. This is from the same author that wrote If We Were Villains, a book that I have absolutely loved. This is like an eerie and restless novella or story about a group of insomniacs who just hang out in a cemetery, and one night they find a hole that was not there before and things are kind of escalating from there. Because this is written in such a way, I think you can easily read this in a night where you can't sleep. It has like a horror element to it, but it's not as frightening that it would keep you up at night, if that makes sense. Next up, I have Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan at 110 pages. This is a book about empathy and hope and grief, in which a worker from an Irish small town from 1985 discovers the dark secrets of the church and some shocking truths from his community. Even though this is not like my overall favorite book, it is written so beautifully, and I know this is the favorite of a lot of people, so I had to include it in this video. Next up, I have a poetry collection by Lana Del Rey. This is Violet Band Backwards Over the Grass at 128 pages. If you were chronically online on Tumblr in 2012 and you reblogged just grainy, grungy photos of Lana like wearing a flower crown or just smoking a ciggy with her smudged eyeliner, I truly believe this book is for you. It has also some beautiful imagery and photographs that Lana took herself, and I really liked this this collection very much. It reads like lyrics of a song, which is very on brand for Lana. I would suggest that if you're picking this one up and you want to read it, please, please, please read this one out loud, because all of her poems have this melody to them and they truly, truly sound amazing when you are reading them out loud. This is Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass. Next up, another recommendation from the powerful writer that Eva Baltasar is. This is Permafrost at 131 pages. This is Eva Baltasar's debut novel. It is lyrical and raw and fresh, and it contains such a powerful and vivid imagery. It is following a character who cannot be contained by the norms of society, and you can already see a theme with Eva Baltasar's character studies. This was my first Eva Baltasar book, and it will forever and ever hold such a special place in my heart. I have tabbed and annotated this one, and I also highly recommend you read the translator's note at the end of this one, because it truly puts things into perspective and you are able to appreciate this book, the translated version, so much more than you would otherwise. So highly, highly recommend Permafrost by Eva Baltasar and translated by Julia Sanchez. Next up, I have Lie With Me by Felipe Besson at 150 pages. This is a coming-of-age novel about the love affair between two teenage boys that is set in the 1980s in France, and it just captures the vulnerability and tenderness of first love. Be prepared to cry a lot if you want to pick up this book. Another book that made me cry, this is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin at 150 pages. This is a classic. It is a tragic love affair set in Paris between two young men, Giovanni and David, and their obsession with one another. I highly recommend you read this one, because even though it's a classic, there are so many lines that are still so relatable and true to this day that you will not be able to put this book down until you finish reading it. Next up, I have A Perfect Day to Be Alone by Nanae Aoyama at 150 pages. This is a touching coming-of-age story about loneliness and heartbreak, and about the painful process of transitioning from teenagehood to adulthood. A Magical Girl Retires by Park Sol-yoon at 160 pages. This is full of very stereotypical fantasy tropes that are somehow transposed in our real world. This is following a 29 years old, very depressed girl who just discovers that she is a magical girl, and her magical wand is quite literally a credit card, and she kind of finds out that she has to combat climate change but also capitalism. A Magical Girl Retires. Also for this one, highly recommend you read the translator's note at the end. This is translated by Anton Herr, who has translated some of my favorite books, truly, and he is able to put this book in such a context that it just makes you appreciate it so much more. Next up, I have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher at 169 pages. This is a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. In typical T. Kingfisher fashion, this is dark, eerie, gothic. You have a lot of fungi that are somehow involved in the plot of this book. You have some hares that are just behaving very, very strangely, and also a mysterious lake full of decaying vegetation. Next up, I have When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, from the same author that wrote Divergent, at 169 pages. This is inspired by Polish folklore. It is an urban fantasy set in Chicago. It is full of witches and magical creatures and underground fighting clubs. Another classic, this is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson at 170 pages. This is a very eerie and gothic and just peculiar story about a family who is poisoned with sugar laced by arsenic and kind of the aftermath of that. Next up, Love in the Big City by Sang-Yoon Park at 217 pages. This, in my opinion, perfectly captures what it means to be a young and cynical student, the ups and downs of friendships, and also the ups and downs of love and of finding one's self. This is Love in the Big City. Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski at 229 pages. This is heavily inspired by Giovanni's Room. The action of this book is set in the early 1980s in Poland, and it is presenting the love story between two men who are finding themselves quite literally on two opposing sides of the political divide. I highly recommend this book, even more so if you already read Giovanni's Room and you want something that captures the same existential dread that that book is able to capture. Highly recommend Swimming in the Dark. Also, if you have not read Giovanni's Room prior to this, this is amazing on its own, but I would suggest you read Giovanni's Room first because there are so many references to that book in this one, and I truly believe it will enhance your experience of Swimming in the Dark if you have previously already read Giovanni's Room. My second to last recommendation, this is What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama at 247 pages. This contains 5 short stories that are all kind of connecting together in the end. This is just so heartwarming and full of wisdom, and it perfectly encapsulates the magical power of books and how reading the right book at the right time can quite literally change our lives. And last but certainly not least, I have Almond by Won Pyung-soon at 250 pages. This is following a boy who was born with a certain brain condition called alexithymia, and that condition makes our character not really be able to feel any sort of emotion. This book is obviously following our main character as he is struggling through life because of this condition, but also it touches upon how important a support system is in our lives, and also how love and friendship can change quite drastically how we live our lives. So because of that, I would highly recommend this one. I, again, cried multiple times throughout this book. This is Almond. That being said, this is the end of today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below if you read any of these books and what are your thoughts and opinions on them. Or if not, if you plan to read any of these after this video. And yeah, as always, I will probably hopefully see you in the next one. Bye everyone.